All right, everyone. Welcome to the Seller Finance Creative Deals podcast. I'm Dan Deppen, and today joined by Dave Dubeau. Dave's going to tell us about how to raise money and different techniques for doing that, including leveraging podcasts and other things. So, Dave, how you doing?
Dan, I'm great. Thanks so much for having me on your show. It was my pleasure to interview you a couple of weeks back on mine, wherever that went in the wrong
That's
direction.
back
There it
there.
is.
Yeah.
That's back there somewhere. Yeah, so great to be on your show as well.
No, I appreciate you coming on. So, maybe we can start. Just give us a little bit of background on you and kind of what you've been doing in the world of real estate investing.
Okay, well, you might have picked up from my accent that I'm Canadian, so I'm up here in beautiful British Columbia. I grew up here, actually lived overseas for almost 14 years. I ended up living in San Jose, Costa Rica. Had a language training school down there. I got married, had kids, and then 2003 packed up my Costa Rican family kicking and screaming and dragged them back to Canada.
It
Well,
sounds like a
actually, did
different
drag
climate than Costa Rica. Yeah.
very tropical paradise, frozen hinterland. What's going on? Well, what
Yeah.
we don't realize, Dan, is how good we've got it till we leave for a while. So Costa Rica is beautiful. It is great. But my then wife and myself decided, you know what, Canada is a better place to raise the kids. So
Hmm.
that's why we came back. But I had to kind of start all over again from scratch in my 30s. You know, I'd left that business behind in Costa Rica, hadn't been able to sell it, didn't have a lot of cash, came back, didn't have bad credit. I had zero credit, and I
Hmm.
was kind of starting from ground zero. So, do you remember those infamous late night infomercials, Dan?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, what was it? I think Tommy Vu was my
yeah. There's
favorite
there's
one.
a
If you ever
It
seen
was
him. Yeah.
there's one guy that said, "You too can get rich in real estate with little or no money down." And I said, "Perfect. That's what I got. Little or no money down." So I
Yeah.
sent away for this big box of stuff. But I don't know if it had VHS cassettes still or CDs or whatever, but got all this stuff and put it to use. And that's what I got into real estate investing. Did 18 deals in 18 months, which may or may not sound impressive, but they were pretty. Some of them were nice deals. Some of them were crappy little mobiles and mobile home
No, that's
parks.
pretty good. That's a lot more than what most people do.
Well, I had a
I
fire. I had a fire under my butt, man. It was
yeah.
I'd bring home the bacon.
Yeah, because like I don't know. I've worked with a lot of different real estate investors and have a wide network, and I kind of try to observe like how people go about business, and I would say like the majority kind of go super slow because they're worried about making mistakes. But I've known people who just like kind of come flying out the gate. They do like some amount of research, but and then they make a lot of mistakes in doing that, and it's kind of painful. But then like once they get through that, but their learning curve is like super steep. So I feel like if you have the stomach to do that, like that often works out, and people get to a good place a lot faster.
Well, my case was, Dan, I didn't have much choice. Had to be making money somehow, and it was that or work at McDonald's, and I didn't really want to work at McDonald's, so
Right. Yeah.
make the real estate thing. So I'm driving around in my I buy houses minivan with little kids in car seats and all this
Mm-hmm.
kind of stuff. Yeah, it was fun times, but that's how I got started in real estate. So that was 2003. Then I ended up connecting with an up and coming real estate guru up here, and I had a pretty strong background in marketing. So I ended up becoming his kind of marketing dude. Did that
Mm-hmm.
for a number of years, got out of active real estate investing, got back in, eventually kind of got into the multifamily space and into the capital raising side of things. In the last dozen plus years, Dan, I've really been kind of combining marketing and capital raising, and we've worked with several hundred real estate investors from across North America, helping them to raise capital for their deals. And for the last year and a half or so, I've been really laser focused on syndicators, fund managers, professional capital raisers, helping them to connect with what are called accredited investors and raise capital from them.
Yeah, and most people are probably already familiar with it, but for those who aren't, maybe you can talk a little bit about like what an accredited investor is.
They're the rich guys and gals, you guys. But
Yeah.
basically, no, it's uh, different from place to place. But it's like if it's an individual, somebody making $200,000 a year or more consistently, $300,000 a year as a couple, and or have a net worth of $1 million or more, excluding their primary residence. So uh, that's kind of the criteria for accredited investors.
Yeah, what cracks me up about that is like the assumption that basically if you have money, then you must be smart enough to figure things out
Yeah, and
on your own, which we probably
if
all
you
know
don't, you're
people with
not
lots
allowed
of
to
money
invest.
that were not smart. So yeah, it's crazy.
Exactly. Exactly. But, you know, most people want to connect with these kind of folks, get to meet more of them, especially syndicators, because a lot of syndications, their investors must be accredited in order to qualify to invest in their deals.
Mm-hmm.
So that's who they're looking to connect with. So that's what we make happen. And these days we've kind of dialed it in on using a podcast as a way to connect with these accredited investors or high income, high net worth individuals.
Yeah. So why do you focus on like using podcasts for doing that?
Yeah, that's a good question, Dan. Well, because for the last 4 years, give or take, uh, that's what I've been doing myself is using my podcast as a way to connect with my ideal avatar. In my case, my ideal avatar are active real estate investors who are looking to raise private capital. So my podcast is called Property Profits Real Estate Podcast. And we go out and we find people who are actively investing in real estate who are interested in being featured on a podcast. We invite them to be a guest on my show. I do, I do my episodes, do my interviews twice a week for a few hours each time. I interview, give or take 8 to 12 people every week for my show. And then as I'm interviewing the person, I kind of get to know them, uh, create rapport, because the interview is all about them. It's all about featuring them, making them look good, feel good, sound good. And then, we start touching a little bit towards the end of the interview about capital raising. And then
Mm-hmm.
um, after the interview stopped and I'm still on Zoom with the other person, then I see, hey, it sounds like things are going well. How's the whole capital raising thing going? Is it 100% dialed in, or is there a little bit of room for improvement? There's always room for improvement. Boom, get them booked into a follow-up discovery call, show them my thing. So I've been doing this myself for my own business, my consulting business, for the last 4 years. It's been working really well. And about a year and a half ago, Dan, I had the epiphany. It's like, hey, this is working well for me for connecting with my ideal avatar. I wonder if it will work well for syndicators and capital raisers to connect with their ideal avatar, which is typically accredited investors, people with money. So we
Yeah.
started doing this process as a done for you turnkey service for capital raisers and
Okay.
connecting them with their ideal avatar.
Yeah, because I know a lot of people are a little bit intimidated at the idea of either doing a podcast or just putting out content. And I tell people it's not as hard as they think. Like I feel like sometimes people feel like they kind of equate podcast or YouTube channel or something to like getting a show that's on like network TV, and they
Yeah.
don't quite realize there's not really like a barrier to entry. You can just kind of go out
Well, the
and do
other
it.
thing I
Yeah.
tell people is, you know, it's really not about you or I. It's about featuring your guest, at least the kind of podcast we do, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
really about asking a few questions, getting your guest to do 90% of the talking and really making it all about them. So that takes a lot of the fear away for people. It's not about me strutting my stuff and trying to look like the smart guy. It's
Yeah.
about making my guest look good, feel good, and sound good.
Okay, cool. So what are some examples of people who leverage podcasts or other things to start raising capital?
Oh yeah, I got lots of great examples. So um, one of our clients, Desi, was just getting his we were just getting his podcast started because again, we do all this stuff for them. We build out all the platforms and we do all this
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And I said, Desi, I'm going to recommend that you interview some of your existing investors first. Let's get some warm interviews under your belt. Let's get you some practice. Make sure that you're feeling comfortable with this. And so he did. And the first investor that he interviewed, they had a great time on the interview. And at the end, after the interview stopped, I said, you know what, Desi? I think I want to invest some more money with you. And she turned around, and it wasn't a huge amount, but she invested another 50 grand with Desi in one of his
Mhm.
syndications. He didn't even really ask for it. Okay. Another example is one of our clients that we're just working with right now, Nick. He, again, he's to get started with, he's investing some of his existing, he's interviewing some of his existing investors, and he's already got half a dozen really good video testimonials from some of those interviews. So at the end of the interview, I say, hey, Nick, why don't you do this? Pull up the investment that they've done with you most recently. Ask them if they could just spend about 5 minutes with you at the end of the interview. Do a quick little walkthrough through it with them. Remind them, hey, you put in 100 grand and here's what we got you. And it turned out that your total return on investment over 4 years was 123% or whatever it was, annualized
Mhm.
return. Just remind them what they did. And then, you know, start the recording again and ask some open-ended questions. So, hey, Dan, how did you feel about that investment you did with us? How did that compare to some of the other investments that you've done? I know you were kind of nervous when you're first getting into this. How do you feel about it now? If somebody were asking about this, what would you tell them? So ask some open-ended questions like that, get the other person talking, and you can
Mhm.
create some amazing testimonials from those initial interviews. Other people, another client of mine, Matt, obviously looking to connect with high income, high net worth people. We actually got him booked with a fund manager of $1 billion fund. And here's the
Mhm.
cool thing, that fund manager had never been invited to be a guest on a podcast before. So when he showed up with Matt, here's his fund manager. He's several notches up on the economic
Yeah.
ladder compared to our buddy Matt. But he was so nervous at the beginning. He was so excited to meet Matt, to be interviewed, all this kind of stuff. He kind of saw Matt as the rock star, and Matt quickly put him at ease, created that rapport. They had a wonderful interview, ended up getting together for coffee several times after that. I don't know if they've done business yet or not, but they started a whole relationship just from that. So it's a great way to meet people that you probably wouldn't get connected with otherwise. Had another client, he had one of the people from his audience reach out and say, hey, would you mind taking a look at a deal with me? I want to see if this is a good deal. And I say, sure, no problem. Spent about 5 minutes on Zoom with the guy, looked through the deal. Deal didn't look all that good to our client. Said, no, I'd be careful about this. And the person who was not even a guest, was an audience member, said, well, would it be possible to invest with you? And he ended up turning that into a $75,000 investment. So yeah, there's just all sorts of ways that these podcasts work very, very well for raising capital.
No, that's super cool. Yeah, I don't really use mine for that explicit purpose, although I have ultimately kind of raised money from it.
Yeah.
Because what I've kind of found is there are people who will, one of the advantages of a podcast is people can listen to you talk and they kind of know how you think. Because like I do ones that are, kind of more like with a guest, like this one. I also do a lot of it where I call it like, it's like my rambling thoughts
Yeah.
and different
Standalone
things.
episodes.
Yeah, and so people can get it's kind of a nice way for people to get locked into at least how I view the market and how I think and I approach stuff, and
Yeah.
it's nice to do that in long form. Like otherwise, it's hard to for somebody like to kind of get to understand you to that
That's a
level.
really good idea, Dan. And then the other nice thing about the way you do it, which is really, really smart, is that way you're not trying to cram something in while you're interviewing a guest, which I absolutely hate. I see so many
Mm-hmm.
podcast hosts do that. They kind of hijack the interview and do their own little
Oh,
infomercial in the middle of it. Have you seen that kind
yeah.
of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a way for you to, when you're interviewing a guest, you keep the focus on them, and then you do your own standalone rambling episodes, as you call them, right? And
Yeah.
you talk as much or as little as you want about the thing that you're talking about. So you get the best of both worlds.
See, now I should edit something in so that right as you're saying that, it like cuts and I go into, I don't know, something from left field. No, I was kidding.
Do
I won't
your
do
own.
that.
Well, you know what? That's another, like, there's so many ways we can leverage a podcast, right? I was just counting them the other day. It was like 8 different ways that I've leveraged the podcast. Number one way is to meet my ideal avatar. Number two way is what we talked about, standalone episodes, so you can kind of riff on whatever you want to do and people get a better connection with you. Third way
Mm-hmm.
is take those rambling episodes and slice and dice them, create content from that. You got a ton of different
Mm-hmm.
shorts that you can use. You can take the transcript, turn that into audio articles and LinkedIn articles and blog posts and all that kind of good stuff. Um, Another way is just like we are right now, it's a great way to connect with other podcast hosts, right? So you invite them to be a guest on your show. And then at the end, maybe you say, hey, how about if I'm a guest on your show? So you can actually do kind of back and forth. And it's a great way to get interviewed on other people's podcasts. Or you can do what I call interview swaps, where you just kind of go back to back and I
Mm-hmm.
interview you, then you interview me. Great way to connect with people that are hard to reach. A great way to connect with cross promotional partners. So Dan, you've got a lot of content around note investing. That's your specialty. That's what you're great at. Well, you connect with guys like me that have lists of people who are interested in real estate, but we're non-competitive. My whole thing's about raising capital. Your whole thing's about notes. Well, it'd be easy to do some sort of a cross promotion. So I promote your thing to my list, you promote my thing to your list. It's a win-win that way. So there's just so many different ways to leverage a podcast.
Yeah, the other thing I do a lot is like a lot of times I've interviewed people where really just I wanted to pick their brains
Yeah.
about stuff. And so, most people won't necessarily let you talk for, 30 minutes or whatever and just quiz them, but they'll come on a podcast. So like a lot of the
All
times the
day long.
questions I have
Yeah.
are just things that like I specifically wanted to know, right? That otherwise are kind of hard to get.
Beautiful. Yeah, exactly. So, for example, on your podcast, interviewing real estate attorneys or something like that, that would be charging
Mm-hmm.
you five, $600 an hour. You
Yeah.
you get
That's
a little,
yeah. Yeah, it'd be good
yeah,
to
they're
have like a
happy to
real
do it.
estate attorney podcast. Yeah, you'll save like $300 an hour or whatever it is. Yeah, it's
Yeah. So podcasts are just such a wonderful way. And then it's a great way to create content, right? So we don't have to be coming up with new, fresh content off the top of our heads every day, every week, every whatever. You have a podcast interview, I interview somebody smart like you, and then bang, my content's done for the week. Like I can just slice and
mm-hmm.
dice our interview, take the transcript, turn that into LinkedIn articles and Instagram posts and all that kind of good stuff, and it's all done.
Yeah, so the one thing I have to ask because it's all the rage, like are you using AI in any way to
Oh, all the time,
produce
man.
content?
Not to produce it from scratch, but to simplify our lives. So yeah, we use AI a lot, Dan, in some of our video marketing, some of our video stuff. The programs are pretty smart. They can kind of go into the interview and suggest where the best places are to create reels from. So you don't have to, you have to double check everything, of course, but
Yeah.
that saves a ton of time. And then just like I was mentioning for creating content, now the beautiful thing is you and I are having this conversation. It's our content, right? But we
Mm-hmm.
can take the transcript of our conversation, put that through ChatGPT and say, hey, use this transcript and create a LinkedIn article all around this. Use this transcript and create a Facebook post that creates curiosity about this, and we'll include the link to the interview from that. Take this
Mm-hmm.
transcript and create an Instagram post. Take this, all of this stuff. So yeah, we use AI all the time for that, but not to come up with stuff from scratch. It's kind of crappy at that, but it's very good at taking your stuff and repurposing the heck out of it. And it just saves us, like literally AI can do all that stuff in less than 30 seconds. It would take a human being all day long kind of thing to do a good job with.
Yeah, I've been using it increasingly in my day-to-day notes business as I've been in acquisition mode. And yeah, what I've kind of my takeaways as of now are you still have to know your business.
Yeah.
Like you have to know what you're doing, but it can save you a lot of time on like those like admin type
Yeah.
things.
I don't know, but let me ask you this, Dan. I've been finding that lately, sometimes AI is kind of, I use ChatGPT a ton. I got the paid version too. It's not the
That's
free one.
mostly what I use. Yeah, I've got
Yeah.
was that the $20 a month one. I don't. You
Yeah,
have the other one
exactly.
that's like 200 a month. I haven't
No,
tried
okay.
that one,
I'm
but
using the $20 a month one, but it's giving me some really stupid answers sometimes. Have you found that? Like Like you
Yeah,
really have to keep
what
an
I've
eye on
done a
it.
lot of experiments with is I'll put the same prompt in different ones. Like I'll try ChatGPT and Claude and Grok and Gemini. And the different AI seem to be better at different specific tasks. So like
Mm.
sometimes one of them will just like nail it like, oh, that's really good. And then the others will give me like just complete garbage. And they're
Yeah.
changing those things all the time. So it's really like kind of a moving
Moving
target.
target.
Yeah.
Ah,
But yeah,
good point.
sometimes I just get complete garbage. I've asked it questions that I already know the answer to and gotten the wrong answer in different
Yeah.
cases. So you got to
Yeah.
be real
You,
careful with it. Like I said,
you
you
do.
still
You
have to
have
know
to
your business.
verify.
You still have to know what you're doing, whatever the topic happens to be. But it is kind of nice for kind of condensing things. Like I've been using it to like read pay history reports and do other things and like read docs and extract
Yeah.
stuff, and it can really help with certain things. But yeah, it's not going to actually think for you too much. Maybe down the road, but as of now, not really. So
I don't even trust anymore. I have to verify everything. Like I have to read everything very, very carefully. So it seemed like it
yeah.
was smarter 6 months ago. But that's just my
Well,
take on
yeah,
it.
and that's the thing, right? They change all the time, and they're always coming out with new models and changing the
Well, the other
models.
challenge
And
is like so much stuff online now is AI generated that it's just feeding on itself almost like for coming up with answers. It's, so
yeah, I
that's the
really hate
danger of this
that.
thing.
My pet peeve is like the AI like YouTube videos where like I'm going down a rabbit hole on a topic and you get something and I'm like, ugh, I just like
Yeah,
get that out
yeah,
of here.
for
So
sure.
well, cool. Well, Dave, thanks so much for joining. How can people get a hold of you or learn more if they're maybe thinking about creating a podcast or getting in on
Yeah,
it
well,
themselves?
if you're a real estate investor and you're serious about raising capital, you got a track record, you've raised capital before, you want to connect with accredited investors, we can definitely help you. I've got a free book. It's called 20 accredited investors book.com. That's where you can get it. 20, the number 20, accredited investors book.com. And the book is called How to Get 20 Accredited Investor Meetings Every Month Without Cold Calling, Chasing, or Posting. So you can get a copy of that. If you want to book a call after you opt in for the book, you can book a call as well. We can talk about how our services work and how we can make this all done for you.
Okay, awesome. Well, Dave, thanks so much for joining. I appreciate it. If you want to send me the links to all that stuff afterwards, I'll make sure to put those in the descriptions.
That sounds great. Thanks so much for having me, Dan. It's been a
All
lot of
right,
fun.
thanks a lot.